Okay, let's see. Let me check if we're live on the link in YouTube. Yeah, there is a slight delay. All right. Yes, we are live.
Hey,
Okay, let me mute it.
let me check.
Okay, hello everyone, and thank you for joining us on this Wednesday evening for our 50th meetup. And yeah, from the comfort of wherever you are in Bulgaria or around the world. Um, and as I mentioned, it's our 50th meetup, so it's kind of a special one. So what we decided to do is actually um, focus on the Bulgarian aspect of the meetup, and more specifically for successful Bulgarians in the blockchain space. And when I was thinking of who are the successful Bulgarians in the blockchain space and who can we invite, and of course there are many, but really the first name that I really thought of was Bisers, because I follow him in Twitter, and I have read his Forbes articles focused on enterprise blockchain, DOT, and how big business is actually using blockchain. And honestly, yeah, Bisser's pieces in Forbes are the only source of information for me in relation to DOT and blockchain, because this is really not something that I'm focusing on generally. But I see some very interesting developments there, and I think Bisser is perhaps the most appropriate person to talk about those, together with maybe the guys from Industria and yeah, Petko Karamochev, a little, yeah, unpaid advertisement for them. So, yeah, although the meetup is actually Bulgarian themed, it will be in English. And if you find this weird and you think that it's not appropriate and we should have these meetings in Bulgarian only in the future, uh, please let us know by what? Filling in the survey that is currently running, and possibly win prizes in Bitcoin. And this survey is actually super important for us. We have put a lot of work into it, especially creating the two versions, because there is a Bulgarian and an English version. Um, and it will really help us really, what is it, yeah, get our watches straight. I think there's an expression like this or similar, at least in Bulgarian, about what you guys want, what you guys are looking for, what you guys don't like. So please fill it in. It's about 10 minutes long. There are only two short answer questions, so everything else is just, yeah, clicking basically. As I said, it's in Bulgarian and English, and it could even be filled in on a mobile device. But when you're doing this, my advice would be not to open the link through Facebook. Just copy it and paste it in your browser on the device, because if it's open in Facebook, you might accidentally close it while filling it in. So yeah, this is very important. So enough with the introductions. Before we start with the talk with Bisser, we have the customary news updates, and a few updates from the sponsors. And before we jump into that, yeah, thank you again for joining us, and I'm glad that you guys are here on this warm summer day in March. And Anastasia, you are go.
Hi everyone from me. So I'll start as usual with the top news that our community has voted on. Just let me share my screen first. Okay, so sorry, that's the first news. So those are the poll results from our Sofia Crypto Meetup group, and those are the three winners. The first one is actually not news from this month, but from last month. Actually, the all-time high Bitcoin hash rate was reached in early May, just shortly before the halving, and then it dropped just like literally right after the halving, and now it's came back. So it's actually the source is bit infographics. As you can see, it's like back to normal now. The second news, Comp token becoming the most valuable token in the DeFi space. We know that we have like a lot of DeFi fans in our community. You can see from the DeFi polls some stats. The number of lenders on the Compound protocol increasing rapidly. Just recently, from when it was the Compound token was listed on Coinbase. Also, the project crossed the 600, as you can see, 600 million in USD in total value locked in USD. In actually, most is locked in Ether. And just for reference, MakerDAO is second with like just at the moment a bit more than 460 million locked in USD. News number 3, China's first national level blockchain cross-border financial system goes live. It was actually piloted first in the province of Guangdong in October 2019. So the news is that the China Guangfa Bank officially launched, it's one of the major Chinese banks, has officially launched the blockchain-based cross-border financial service platform with the guidance of the Guangdong branch of the State Administration of Foreign Exchange. The blockchain-based cross-border service platform was built with the purpose of promoting fintech innovations on the cross-bank blockchain ecosystem. It focuses on solving difficulties faced by banks and enterprises in export, trade, finance, and provides a series of information verification services. So as of, actually this is data of early June, 52 banks already have participated in the pilot. That's excluding the Shenzhen region.
The results of the poll are as displayed in the app to you.
Sorry.
And then we're going to go a little bit into how does the governance...
Ashish, I think you're not muted.
Yeah. So yeah, generally those are the news. Now we go. I'll continue sharing my screen, and what will tell us about a rumor that went viral.
Yes. So let me see the screen here. Yeah, for some reason I don't. Maybe it's not visible. Okay, because you're not speaking. Never mind. So there is the fourth piece of news is related to the rumor that PayPal is going to start providing cryptocurrency, selling and buying, I guess, exchange services, let's call them, soon. It's not clear when this will happen, if it will happen at all. But this rumor was actually supported by PayPal, who announced, or which company announced 8 blockchain-related openings recently, and all 8 of them are for engineers. And this move kind of makes sense because many different fintech companies are already doing it. For example, Robinhood has incorporated crypto trading, Revolut as well, and they are making money. So it's an additional revenue stream for these payment processors, I guess. And it's becoming more attractive because again, more people are becoming interested in crypto and trading crypto, owning crypto, and so on. So this collaboration might be actually with Coinbase and Bitstamp, or both. Coinbase and PayPal have a long history of good relations. I think they have started in some way interacting in 2016. So my comment on this is that it sounds great because it's good for for adoption of crypto. But at the same time, if it's a Revolut-like service where you just, I think what you're buying in Revolut is some kind of a CFD. So you're not owning the Bitcoin yourself. It's just like a position that you're taking on it. This is so it's derivative basically. I don't think this will have a major effect on the price, or that it's, I mean, super great. I hope PayPal will incorporate crypto wallets, and that will be more interesting and better, I would say. But nonetheless, I think it's quite possible that they will go in the way of Coinbase and may possibly having actual Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies traded inside of their service, and not derivatives. Okay, maybe we can go to the next slide, which is Anastasia.
Yep.
Yeah, the price of Bitcoin, and currently we are witnessing. Actually, it's not very visible from the chart there that you can see, but we're currently having a little a sell-off of Bitcoin happening right now. The price went to 9,200 just like minutes ago. But generally, what's happening is that Bitcoin is really existing in a tunnel between, I would say, about 9,000 and 10,000, roughly. Of course, it might go under or over these borders at times, but these are very short-lived jumps or fallings. And it's kind of, it's not certain where it will be go where it will go in the next months. The bulls are expecting it to rise, of course. Bears are a bit more cautious. I myself think that we might stay in this range for a longer time. The summer is usually a period when the price is crypto is not doing much, and the action actually starts after the summer. So it's possible to go lower, below 9,000, but having in mind that we have stayed at this level for a long time, we haven't really breached or stayed under 9,000 for a long time. If it goes below 9,000 and stays there for a couple of days, I won't be surprised if it goes down even further. Yes, so this is about Bitcoin. Maybe we can go to Ether. I don't have that many comments there, but as you can see, the price is going also a little bit up. Actually, it performed better in June. Ether performed better vis-a-vis Bitcoin, like exciting traders. And if we look at the price of Ether and Bitcoin since the start of the year, from the year like to 2020, it went up by 77%, while Bitcoins was up only about 30, and both, of course, are outperforming indices and gold. So this year, Ether is performing quite well. I would say, and this is fueled primarily by two things, in my opinion. At least the network usage is going up because of these two things, and one of them is the Tether transactions that are happening on the network, and they are taking more and more of the block space, and also the really phenomenal growth of DeFi. So DeFi is performing very well. There are lots of different apps that are coming out. As Anastasia mentioned, the Compounds token has been attracting a lot of attention lately because of this new fad called, what is it, farming, token farming, which is basically, putting your USDT and various other tokens or tokens actually in Ether in Compound, and then getting the interest rate for that lending operation you have done, for the fact that you have lended your tokens, and on top of that you're getting actually Compound tokens. So I haven't really looked into it, like what how exactly, like how much you can really earn by doing this, but I know that Nexo has staked a huge amount of Tether in Compound, most probably because of the high interest rate. I think it was about 12% on Tether. That's an yearly interest rate or yield. But also in order for them to be able to get Compound tokens. And yes, I think that's about Ether. I think the DeFi space will be pushing or could be pushing the price of Ether up, but there are definitely even more interesting tokens that that could give you a better returns, possibly. But again, this is not a investment advice. I'm not a professional like trader or investor or financial consultant. Just my thoughts on that. And now we can jump to the sponsorship announcements, and we have three, of course. And we'll start with Ashish from Eternity. Ashish.
Hello, everyone. Hello. So yes, talking about Superhero, I already mentioned what the platform is about in the last session. Can you guys hear me? Is it audible?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So yes, talking about the superhero.com, it is going super nice. It's a platform for tipping content creators and maybe eliminating the mediators and connecting the people directly. Talking more about superhero.com, we have come up with some awesome features on superhero.com, including voting, which is taking polls of people to make decisions in a better way. You can read more on the Eternity forum about that. And there's also Superhero Meet, which is to be announced very soon. There is a lot of things as well. One second, just had. Okay, yeah, and this time we are focusing more on the content creators because this is a crisis time in all world, and we are focusing that more and more content creators are on board, and to make internet much more fairer for content creators by onboarding them on Superhero, and maybe they can directly on whatever they feel fair for, and using superhero.com and using the tipping systems of superhero.com. So pretty much this is the thing. This is the update for superhero.com, and yes.
Thank you very much, Ashish, for the update from Eternity, and I hope you guys progress forward. It kind of sounds like nice that you can tip anyone on the internet using just the URL. Their URL, no matter if it's like a Medium blog post or if it's a Twitter profile or the LinkedIn profile. Yes, that's pretty cool, and I hope this develops in the future as well. So Anastasia, you have something from Nexo?
Oh yeah, we have actually quite a lot of things and more coming. Really, like we're launching something almost every day. It's crazy. So now I'll just voice just three of the news, the latest ones. As you know, you can earn up to 10% daily compounding interest on your fiat currencies and stable coins on Nexo. And now you can also earn on. We supported quite a bunch of great cryptocurrencies. You can earn up to 5% on crypto also. XRP, Stellar, Litecoin, LTC, Bitcoin Cash, and EOS, and the really awaited, I'm sure everyone's waiting for Bitcoin and Ether. They're coming sooner than you can imagine, really soon, like any moment now, but I cannot say more. And also recently we supported USDC as a borrowing option for the next instant crypto credit lines. And the third news, just as of yesterday, the next token is already listed on the digital assets trading platform BigQuant, with three pairs next to Bitcoin, with ETH and USDT. So since BigQuant is like one-stop solution for professional digital asset investors and institutions, Nexo now is actually even more accessible to international investors. Institutional, sorry, investors, international too. So those are the news, more coming up, so stay tuned.
Perfect. Yeah, I see a lot of updates coming from Nexo, and I see the interface was updated, and now it's more clear, like which asset gets like what kind of APY, so yield, and also you're getting interest rates on interests on or not interest, but something on the tokens on the Nexo tokens themselves. I forgot the word, so yeah.
You can stake the Nexo token, so you can get more interest. For example, if you with the earn product, if you don't stake Nexo tokens, you get 8%. That's why it's up to 10. And with staking, you would get 10. With the cryptocurrencies, it's 4 without and 5 with Nexo tokens. If that's what like. Yeah.
So is staking? Is it just depositing in Nexo?
Yeah, we call it staking. Yeah, there is. Okay. Actually, we're not. The Nexo token is an ERC20 token, so it's not like the proof of stake staking.
All right, perfect.
You just need to deposit. It's super easy. And by the way, yeah, also you're very active in Twitter. Also, like we all loved your comparison with BlockFi. Maybe you can tell us more how instant was the withdrawal with Nexo and how long you waited with BlockFi.
Yeah, so my problem there was that I waited for 4 days for a withdrawal from BlockFi, and it was related to a bank holiday on Friday. I guess it was bad timing on my part to a large extent, but whenever I have to wait for my crypto to be withdrawn from somewhere, I usually expect it to be instantaneous. And that's what happened with Nexo. Actually, one time I just waited for 3 hours, but it was on a weekend, so that's completely understandable. But with BlockFi, I waited for 4 days, and the guys, they even replied, and they told me that they're working on this and they understand that it's an issue, and people in the crypto space are not used to waiting. And possibly they will improve their service in the future.
Yes, because it's like it's cryptocurrency. It's supposed to be like instant. It's 24/7. The exchanges are 24/7. It's like part of the.
Exactly. So real quick before we go into the talk with Bisser, a quick update with BitHope. Yes, this last week we distributed 750 euros to 5 of our campaigns. And there was one very large donation done last year of about, I think it was 27,000 euro. It was really large donation in Bitcoin, and it was dedicated to breast cancer. And actually, the campaign related to that we're organizing together with a Bulgarian nonprofit organization will start this year. It will slow down because of the virus. But this year we will have the campaign done. I'm not sure if it's going to be during the summer or after the summer, but I'll keep you guys updated on that. And that was all of the first important and the classic part of our meetup. And now we are really going into the main subject of today, the main talk with Bisser. And hi, Bisser, are you here?
Yes, guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you. So yes, perfect. So thank you very much to you as well for joining us on this special anniversary that we are having. And you're a really, really special guest for us. You were super vocal in the blockchain community, in the DOT community. As I said, I'm reading your articles in Forbes. And when I'm looking at your resume in LinkedIn, I'm super impressed by it. You've been to a number of companies, very interesting companies. You're a developer. You are dealing with derivatives as well. So you have this really unique profile, and you're a manager as well. So you have this really, really unique profile. But to start a bit like more generally, I would like to ask you for the short version of how you got involved into programming and then into financial markets.
Right, right. Yeah. So thank you guys for having me, and it's a pleasure to be on this anniversary edition, 50th. Congrats for doing 50 meetups. That's amazing. That's a long time. So yeah, crypto space is booming. As you guys are like following the updates you guys are having, it's amazing. So a little bit of introduction on my end. How I got into programming. I started, this reminds me how old I am. I started 2002. I started programming, basically, not that much in university. I'm computer science in Technical University of Sofia, but basically on the side, learning HTML back then when you didn't have Google, so you had to buy books. I was looking at some my old emails, and I got I was buying a book of XML. That's, I don't know, 2003 or something along those, the big chunky books that you have to read for XML. Imagine that. So yeah, I got into HTML for just basically websites, doing JavaScript before we had libraries. So you had like a plain vanilla bare bone JavaScript. You have to write your own libraries. Then moved into, so the short version, moved into backend programming with PHP, and, you know, like on open source interfaces, like back then it was purely Linux, so PHP programming. Then got into Microsoft technology stack with C#, VB.NET. I was fortunate that early 2000, 2004, 5, 6, Sofia was attracting a lot of investors. And we have so much talent in Sofia and Bulgaria in general. And I was fortunate to work with technologies that were new. And for example, working with big data before it was a buzzword. We're just working with a huge data sets of data. Then after that, up and down, moved around Europe a little bit, UK. After that, joined the company TradeLogic, that we can talk about it. It's an amazing company. I learned a lot, changed several positions within that company. So fast-paced, and so you have that opportunity to grow within the company from 10 people to, I think on the max we had around 80, maybe 100 people, or maybe more. I don't remember now, but it was a super amazing experience. Afterwards, and that's how I got introduced full-time into a blockchain space. I co-founded BlockX in late 2015. We saw the interaction between technologies and where the blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies might be going in the future. That's why we try to do it. The company is still going. It's an amazing company. So I know I'm hearing that there will be news around BlockX soon. I have to make a disclosure that all my opinions are my own. Not of the companies that have been employed, not of my current employer. So all that we are discussing is my all personal opinion, and that's how I got into technology.
Perfect, nice. Actually, your microphone, I'm getting some reports that your microphone is a bit muted. Do you think you can improve the sound a little bit?
Let me see.
I see a little bit of a clicking from it, but I mean, we can hear you, but it's a bit muted.
Hold on. Let me do something. I can try to connect with another headset I have prepared. So let me see if this one would work quickly.
Okay, perfect. Sure, yeah.
In the meantime, I must say that Bisser have had a really impressive walk, like in crypto. I even used to say that he is maybe the most prominent Bulgarian internationally in the blockchain space. and we actually met last year on at Consensus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he's not hearing us.
This one didn't work or something. Maybe.
No, there's some sound. Maybe if your microphone is coming from the PC. No, now we cannot hear you at all, unfortunately.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yes, now we can hear you. Can you say something?
Yes, I can. Yeah, can you hear me now? Is it better?
Yes, I think this is better. Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. Apologies.
No worries. So Anastasia just mentioned that he met you during Consensus, I think in New York.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so let me go forward a little bit with the question. So you got first introduced to blockchain when exactly? With trade logic or when you became the CEO of BlockX?
Yeah, that's a funny story. By the way, I wasn't a CEO of WalkX. I was technology director. So let me tell you how that's a funny story. I've said it several times. I knew about Bitcoin. I think it's 2011, but fortunately, I didn't do anything about it. I was just spectating on the sidelines, and then I think one of the first crises happened in terms of like euro. There was something happening in the eurozone with banking, and the eurozone blocked large. I wasn't sure if it's like foreign accounts in Malta, in Cyprus, or something. So the industry I was in decided to leverage Bitcoin as a payment mechanism to go around those restrictions. So that's how I saw the potential of that technology is actually working. It's more like it's a real payment mechanism, and people are using it to transact and do cross-border payments instantaneously and on scale. I think that amount that in 2013 contributed to, I think, one of the first spikes of, I think it reached 1,000 or something, and then of course dropped a little bit, but that was the first time I got like a first experience, because at the time I was at TradeLogic, and it just created friction when a lot of bank accounts were closed, and a lot of the merchants that we were working, the organization that we were working, just started leveraging Bitcoin. That was very interesting for me as just looking at it on the sidelines. But then professionally, I got involved with BlockX. Just maybe towards saying a quick what is BlockX. We had the idea, and still we had the niche of creating a white label cryptocurrency exchange provider. What that means is because this market niche from other areas, for example, in gambling, in casino, you don't, or in financial services as well, you don't create your own infrastructure from scratch. Nobody does that. Nobody in the right sense of mind, though, with enough money that you wait and you hire 60 people in Sofia and you pray that they'll deliver the product in 1 year, and nobody's going to hack you. So that doesn't work. So you go, you buy off-the-shelf solution, you customize it. That's why it's a white label. Everything is connected, payment rails, on all compliance is taken care of as a product. So you just take it off the shelf and you run it. So there was nothing like this in crypto. That's why we decided to do it. And I see some companies are doing it now. Some with similar, some success, I guess. But that's the idea of it. And for that, we had to create, you can imagine, a large infrastructure, technical infrastructure of backend services, customizable front end, strong pipes to manage transaction flow, to manage payments. because you're not doing one exchange, you're not creating one Coinbase. You're actually, your infrastructure needs to run potentially like 80 Coinbases, best case scenario. So it should be very strong and very proficient. So yeah, that's how I got introduced professionally with blockchain. Afterwards, I didn't mention, I was consulting with large consulting groups here in the States. I was part of a company that probably one of the largest employers in the world. I think I can mention a couple of minutes for what I was doing over there. I hope that, I think that will be useful for the listeners, for the viewers. My area, my domain is banking, financial services, and insurance. So I was covering all the large enterprises in the northeast of the States. So that's practically New York, Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, large institutions that have appetite for blockchain.
Okay, cool. That's very interesting. And when you say appetite for blockchain, are they interested primarily in the payments side of the blockchain, or is there something more?
Yeah, my microphone appears to be not. Okay, let me try that one again. I think I will figure it out now. Let me see if this one will be better.
Yes.
Sorry,
Okay, can you hear it?
I can hear you. Can you say something?
Yes, checking.
Can you guys check the microphone?
I think the microphone is maybe not the headset microphone. You can change change it to the headset one from the settings in the lower right corner.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to choose the microphone.
No, I guess you can keep the microphone, but if you can hear us through the headset, I think it will be better.
Oh yeah, I can hear it through the headset. Okay, so let me keep the same microphone as before.
Yeah.
This one. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, it's better, much better.
Awesome. Okay, let's do that now.
Perfect.
Let's do that now. So yeah, what I was saying about the appetite, you asked me about is the payments or anything. So the things that I can say, there is a lot of happening. There is a lot of work. To put it in perspective, I was sitting with the largest retail and commercial banks, and not only banks. So think about large custodians. These are traditional custodians, without mentioning names. So institutions like funds, brand names that you see every day on the news. Each one of them was having, and still having, just I'm not part of it, is having multiple blockchain POCs or pilots that, and they all stand for different use cases. And there is appetite, I would say mostly blockchain as a technology. We can speak about cryptocurrencies as well. That's on the trading part and more on the payments part. Whoever is doing payments, like the news that you guys posted about PayPal, but more on the backend infrastructure. So benefits from blockchain, like just visibility, knowing who is doing what, having that shared repository of shared ledger that companies and nodes can agree on smart contract terms and share data between them. More on that side, more on the automation of smart contract, and smart contract having that governance offset it. Not, you don't have to trust me. You can trust the smart contract that we both agree on. And of course, there is a large subset of those companies working on payments as well. it takes time. Why it takes time? The payment side, because when you touch when you touch more counterparties on a flow outside of your organization, you have to comply to a certain regulations, and those regulations takes time. In the sense of a backend functions, what I was mentioning earlier, using it as a backend technology, you don't need a permission from anybody. You can do that on your own. We can replace, for example, netting and reconciliation of transactions on your own using blockchain, so you don't need a permission. A lot of banks are using those type of instruments, like internal pegs to dollar stablecoins, to facilitate faster processes on their backend. That's why they don't need permission for anybody. That's why that's the go-to. So the go-to business model for them, and that's why it's easier.
So it's basically they're trying to reduce costs and make their services more efficient, so to say.
Correct. Yes. They're trying to reduce costs. There are many costs over here. There is we call it in the consulting world total cost of ownership. TCO, so which constitutes of a lot of like IT or operation costs. You can automate things on paper. I'm not saying that this is the right thing to do, but this is where they're going now in research of if this is a viable model for them to proceed. Because on paper you can trim operation costs, you can trim regulatory and compliance costs of maintaining those books on the back end. Just because you have a single ledger, you can give that visibility, which it's preferable for companies. And you can also optimize your processes, and this can touch a lot on crypto, not on crypto, but on digital assets and stable coins, because they're you can have a lot of visibility on those transactions in terms of like backend service, like netting. Netting is the process and the reconciliations of data. You have instant transactions, instant daily transactions, where usually you have like, I don't know, T-2 or T-3 process. You can go into T-0, which is an instant transaction. It has different challenges in that. Every model is different, but on paper, the models that those large trading service providers are implementing, I'm just going to mention here a few models like payment versus payment, PVP. These are very trading-oriented backend things, but delivery, DVP, delivery versus payment. So, and they're trying to optimize those. I don't want to bore anybody, but that's all the backend stuff that's happening with, and there's potential with blockchain.
And in relation to this, I think Anastasia has a question.
Yeah, sorry, but so on that note about banks using blockchain-based solutions, even one of our news is related to that. If you have heard about it, what do you think about the blockchain-based cross-border service platform that a huge like Chinese bank just launched?
Yeah, wow, China is it's a huge page. I'm not familiar with that specific engagement, what is happening. And by the way, we don't know. There's a lot of miscommunication. I'm keeping in touch with a lot of friends in China. I used to live in Hong Kong before, so keeping a lot of friends with China, and they're telling me that some of the news that we see in the Western world are not exactly correct, because Western media sometimes blows up a story. And I can give you some examples of that, but for that particular, I'm not really familiar what's happening, but there is some other engagements that are happening are very significant, just like the DCEP, their CBDC type of payment. that would. It has so much innovation in that in their approach of the way they want to the way they're creating it, like a two-layer system from central bank, commercial banks, and retail, engaging with they have a strong middle layer of fintech providers, and they want to use them like Weibo, WePay, and non-financial. They're all coming from different conglomerates, and they're going to use each one of them on that second layer. That they will use their existing payment rails to distribute the new cryptocurrency, the new not cryptocurrency, the new stable, the CBDC, central bank digital currency. That's a large involvement. That's a large engagement because the way they structure it, and there is not much of information. I'm reading mostly. I'm trying to translate myself because it's a huge topic, and some of the things they're trying to do, like the way they want to have a limited privacy and more importantly, offline payments. Not many. Several European banks are talking about this, but they don't go in the same detail. What China is good doing on scale with offline payments is how, because for CBDC to work, you need to have the same features as cash, meaning that I can give you what you can give instance here, all completely offline that CBDC. And again, when you connect to internet or ledger, you have to be able to sync, but it should be all valid transactions. So that's what gets me excited. The way they're doing these technologies, nobody else, I can tell, nobody else have that on such scale. So that's with China. And the BSN network, I think they call it blockchain service network, which would technically be their cloud, starting with tier 1 as the biggest cities. That's one of the confusions that we see in the large. I think even Coindesk and the block are confusing it because it's not a government organization. Just because few government type of entities are participating in that private network, in that private organization, it's not sponsored. It's not the CCP formulated. So it's completely private. So. Yeah, China is exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the answer. Definitely, I also think like China is one of the front runners in the space, and their CBDC rumored is already testing in some regions. I've heard, and you're very right about the information. I can even guess what we're referring to about, like even once the markets, the crypto markets crashed because of like not knowing whether the information is right or not coming from China. It was just a few years ago. So yeah, let's definitely to follow.
Yeah, right.
And I think when it comes to China and the technology that they're developing, there's a lot of politics there as well. And what they're trying to do with the network and with the cryptocurrency, I think it has like very strong political tint. But going back to your previous comments related to the efficiency gains and the fact that enterprises are actually developing solutions in order to achieve these gains or these efficiencies. So when I think about blockchain, like the public version of blockchain, it's basically like a standard that is being set up, and if you want to use it, you use it as it is, and you cannot easily change that standard. And maybe you don't have all the different features that you need. But when it comes to the enterprise level, so they take blockchain or DOT and they customize it very much to their needs so that they can use it for in their own, like improving their services, of course. But doesn't this kind of like remove this idea of the network effect that blockchain is naturally supposed to create, especially in the case of public blockchains? For example, if Visa develops their own blockchain solution, why would others, like for example MasterCard or other companies, use it? And is it easy to use? Don't they need for this solution to be customized for their own needs? And how does this work? I mean, I know they do these alliances, but do they really work? Like in your opinion?
Well, that's a very good question. There's many layers in your question. First, from the back, if we start with the alliances work, I think to some extent they do work. Maybe not as fast as people wanted for them to work when you start a consortium or alliance and you start, okay, we'll do some purpose network or supply chain or payments network. But that's the conversation, that's the process, I guess, enterprises are used to. So if we think that they'll just embrace Ethereum or any other blockchain, that's not gonna happen soon. Sorry to bust the bubble. So alliances do work. They create some governance, they create some standards. That's what enterprises are used to. They need to know. They need to have a projection of like expenses. If that blockchain is going to split in the next 2 years, what will happen when they move to a different staking algorithm, or what will happen? That predictability or unpredictability in the current public network it's a no-go. Such project won't pass any risk manager, any compliance officer, won't pass anything, and probably you'll get. You won't get fired for mentioning it, but people will be like, okay, stop it. But there is something else happening, and you are right that public blockchains are good because they're always there. And so I should mention over here there's a project, and Lime did work with Baseline. You probably guys saw it. Baseline protocol that's on top of Ethereum. I think it's one of those positive examples where with enough privacy, with enough process, you can use enterprise can use public blockchain not for an end state, not for storing transactions, but for making sure that they follow a process. What I'm saying is that the unpredictability, if you create a token now and Ethereum splits in a year, which is probably, in my opinion, very highly probably, in my opinion, maybe in 1 or 2 years it will split, where those assets would be, which wouldn't be the dominant chain, or if there would be any conflict in the governance. So using blockchain as a store of the assets is wrong. What Baseline is doing is using it as a middleware that is always on, that you can transact and follow a process that you agree, and you have a state that everybody can see, a hash or representation of some output that is there, but it's not the end result of your process. So that's one way enterprises, and some enterprises are using that, not on a production level, but they're making tests, because like Ernst & Young is one of the main leaders within that initiative. Also some, like, Microsoft participates there. So they're looking at those different approaches. So yeah, if that answers the question, but
so my other question is related to this, and you mentioned that when an enterprise is like wants to implement blockchain technology, they're usually looking for the off-the-shelf solution. And I know personally that there are primarily two like DOTs out there that are very common and very widely used, and one is the Fabric, like enterprise blockchain, and the other one is Corda. And I think it's Hyperledger Fabric and Corda. So have you dealt with those two solutions? Do you think they are useful, or like, do they have?
Yeah.
Like, what is the difference between them? I personally don't see a difference, but like, are they focusing on specific use cases, or yeah, what is the differentiation factor, or and also their performance?
Yeah, that's a good question. There are actually a little bit more than two. I think I would add to that list. Okay, there's Hyperledger Fabric, there's R3 Corda. There is on Ethereum side, there is two very similar products. There is Quorum and Hyperledger Besu. Do I miss anything? I think these are the main ones. So on Ethereum side, so they're more or less protocols that let you create a private network, and they have different flavors in terms of like how do you connect to them, which one is more useful, which one has more engaged community where you can build on top of it. And over here, Ethereum, for example, shines Ethereum-based private protocols because of the previous comment you were making about if Visa or somebody else starts to implement a blockchain, how do you start? One option is to start with completely closed environment protocol like Hyperledger Fabric, for example. And then you think about how do you, if further down the line you want to open it to retail users or you want to open it to other protocols, you need to make those adapters, those bridges. The other option is if you start with Quorum, for example, which was developed by JP Morgan initially. You start, but the core of the product is still Ethereum. So the wallet format, the dApps that you see on public Ethereum, if you port them to the private, they would work out of the box, as long as, of course, with ETA, all the versions match, they can compile and your client is up to date, and the technicalities around it, it would work. So that you can reuse the same standards, ERC standards, whatever the number now you want to use for case it will work out of the box. So that's an easy like wall-hanging fruit if you're looking for some protocol you want to leverage, and there will be an adoption down the line. So you can leverage those. The selection process is very difficult because, as you mentioned, there will be true output considerations. There will be software, just license considerations. Just because it's open source, and some of the licenses are a little bit restrictive in terms of like, if you create something using open source license protocol and your intellectual property, and that's what scares a lot of enterprises, the intellectual property part, because when we develop something, it's our own property. We're not, most of the time, we're not willing to open it to the community because it contains some business processes that we codify in smart contracts, so we can't open those, obviously, for these reasons. The reason that you might be restricted in opening, in using open source product, because if it makes public, you have to make it. You're obliged by the GPL or the license that you use. You have to make it public. So that's why a protocol like Corda shines. It's advanced because they have a more restrictive. There's Corda Enterprise version where you can have your own IP, and that's very enterprise friendly. Another benefit for Corda, I'm using Corda Fabric. I've used all of them daily. So there is, I'm familiar with ins and out of why they, which one is better. And there are many trade-offs. But for example, Corda is good because it's on a Java stack using Java virtual machine. So there is abundance of developers. Like now, how many people know Solidity you can trust now for a large? I'm not talking about that we deploy and just to post on Twitter and that people get likes. Talking about the real money movement. How many developers you would trust, and how many testing frameworks for your environment you would trust. Truffle is great, it's amazing, but it's just one framework. There are several other small ones, but still, within the Java world, you out of the box, you have the unit tests. You have a strong, robust framework that hundreds of thousands of developers are used to create enterprise-grade software, and they can create smart contracts to leverage that as well. So it's an obvious benefit. And so on and so on. There are benefits. For example, on the Fabric side, IBM is the largest contributor to the Fabric, and they support for smart contracts a variety of smart contract languages. You can even use JavaScript. You can use Go for smart contracts, and it all compiles to a bytecode that they execute on their virtual machines. it's fairly easy to start with them. And there are nuances, as I mentioned, there are trade-offs in throughput, and but the decision is a process to get to that decision.
Interesting. And so, is it? Can you like when you say that there are different trade-offs? Do you think there are certain use cases that are more appropriate for Hyperledger, let's say, and less appropriate for Corda? And yeah, and my second question would be, what do you think are the most promising DOT use cases, apart from, of course, transacting like the standard stuff related to to payment clearing and settlement? I mean, this is standard. What other use cases you think are interesting?
Yeah, so there is some when you start to analyze which protocols you want to use, sometimes you want to do type of A/B testing, so you can use something small and bold, see which one works and which one is like easier for enterprise to adapt. Sometimes it relates to their infrastructure, like if it's on premise or the cloud. For example, some protocols they're not very mature on cloud. You don't have tools, so you have to do your own Docker images, and it's a little bit of tough calls. But some AWS and Microsoft clouds are having ready-made images, so this might help you in some tools for like how I want to manage my network. Other decisions are around, for example, Corda was being created. I think it was around 60, the first wave of banks that incorporated R3 Corda. It was so it was more created in line with the financial services banking mindset, what they're currently using, and what would be easier for them to integrate. Of course, Corda, the Quorum and Ethereum-based protocols are more on the with the mindset of how we can integrate with the future public network, because they maintain the same structure, wallets, format, APIs are the same. So on your second point, which are the promising use cases? That's a good. I think the out of the box identity would be something that I think was very promising back in the day, 2015, 16, when everybody's talking about blockchain identities. It didn't actually happen, but I still think that there is a lot of promise. Apart from trading / speculation, the other promises, I think it's different from trading, is cross-border payments. And that's why we see now those initiatives happening now. I think it's a process of similar to what Gavin is saying, like the hype of the solution, that you start, you think everything could work on a blockchain, then you're like, okay, it's not really like that, so let's sober up and see what practically we can do. So I'm expecting, in terms of use cases, definitely around cross-border payments, we'll be hearing more.
Okay, and I think I see a lot of like action happening around supply chain. I think identities could be something also interesting, especially for governments. Apart from the like cryptocurrencies, and I heard that Mastercard is actually now deploying or using these tokens, which I guess because it's token, maybe it's on a blockchain. Maybe I'm wrong. Like, can you tell us more about this innovation that Mastercard is delivering on related to tokens and user identities?
Right. I'm not familiar with what that in specific initiative about tokens is. They might. So what I think what you were mentioning, I think what might relate to is, and that's a different language from the crypto world to payment world. When you create a token in the payment world, is you tokenize a card. so you have two options to pay, either with your credit card inline details. So like I have my name, my expiry, my CVV code, issuer bank, sender bank. You have your inline details. That's one way. And the other way is to create a token that represents that card. And I would guess, without knowing what exactly you mean, I think that's the tokens that you might be referring, because when you create a token of that card, you create a faster process, and if the card expires, so there is something issue with the details, you're not exposing the card details. You're just referring to the same token that it's just a safer and faster way for processing payments, not specifically creating a token as we know them in crypto.
Okay, I guess yeah, that was I didn't understand the news in the right way, but then tell us please what are you doing in Mastercard, if possible, of course, if it's not yeah, information that you cannot share with us. What are you guys really focusing on? How are you helping Mastercard with blockchain?
Yeah, so well, the public information that it's out there, and we are connecting with a number of digital assets wallet providers, so to say, like wallets, and we want to give, and again, that's my personal opinion, not talking from the position of a director at Mastercard. So we want to give more access to digital assets for wallets, for cryptocurrency wallets. And of course, there's a process of improving platforms, and we're excited about that, but because it's opening a new market. And we already have existing partnership with several platforms, with several exchanges and wallet providers. And I'm sure that the team, because Mastercard is huge, that there's a special team that takes that engagement. I'm sure the team is looking actively at the new partnerships that can be onboarded. And that's a public information as well. We do a lot of work in the blockchain space. We have, in the specific what you said about the supply chain, we have a provenance product done on a blockchain in a similar way to connect participants that want to use and leverage blockchain technology. And the team that is running that initiative is actively onboarding new participants and making sure that the technology works. There is a lot of talks as a payment processor, that is a Mastercard, a payment network. We are actively looking at things like everything relates to payments, cross-border payments. Think about stable coins. So it's an exciting topics that I hope we'll be able to speak more publicly soon.
Okay, nice, interesting. Maybe Visa is also doing similar things. I guess anyone in enterprise. I saw a study or a survey actually from coming from enterprises. I'm not sure who did it, but I think of something like 60% of enterprises have said that they really want to implement blockchain. So I guess it's kind of becoming hard for you to be an enterprise or working in an enterprise and not implement blockchain. And this actually comes to my next question, and possibly it will be last in relation to enterprise blockchain. Because DOT and blockchain are used as synonyms, and to me, there is a very significant difference. Because DOT is kind of closed, guarded, or walled gardens type of like security or consensus building mechanism implemented inside, and blockchain is kind of the really the more open networks with their own set of disadvantages, of course. But like, what do you think is the main difference between DOT and blockchain? Is there a difference, or?
Well, you word it exactly as it is. There is you can't haven't seen. Well, there is some efforts to create a public DOT, but by nature, by design, DLTs are more governed by either a consortium or a single entity, and they maintain the KYC and the vetting process and the rules of that network, which we can look at it as probably as a private blockchain type of environment. And you have the blockchain, which is the public blockchains. The one way to look at it, I know it's a very technical, but in a DLT, you don't have blocks in that nature. You don't have blocks. You have transactions that are creating a state, and that state can be replicated, not necessarily, but can be replicated to all the nodes, similar to what blockchains have. But those transactions are not connected to one-to-one. They're individual transactions that just constitute a whole state. That's the core of DLT, and there are different flavors of that. But where blockchains, there are actually blocks are connected. You can see the sequence of the previous block. You can validate the Merkle tree around the block, and you can go deeper down that road. So that's one obvious technical difference, and business use case differences is that blockchains, public blockchains, are just public, everybody can join. DLT, so if you need to ask, okay, is it a full trust from IBM? Is it, can I ask Walmart? So they're asking, why do you want to join? Who are you? R3 are having their own public Corda DLT type of network where they have, not sure the number of nodes, but a sizable number of nodes where this is a good example that they're holding the keys of their DLT network. And with the vetting process, they will let you in, and you can use the core dApps that are on that network, but you have to be some kind of like enterprise, or you have to be some type of institution for them to apply and to be allowed. Because to be communicating with other banks. So that's...
Yeah. Interesting. Anastasia, I have a question here for you.
Yeah, here in that on the note, I wanted to ask you, what are, like in your experience in the consulting, I think, part of it, what are the main misconceptions businesses like enterprises have about blockchain? Like for me, I have a really small in comparison with your really brief experience as a blockchain consultant. Like most would firstly ask, okay, but firstly it's for my company, I would why would I use blockchain? It's very expensive, like expensive to transfer, expensive meaning to input data, and it's a really lousy database, and by its like functionally as a database, it's the worst maybe, though it is like actually a database. So yeah, what are the main misconceptions like enterprises, businesses have about blockchain in your experience?
And just to note, I muted you, so you have to unmute yourself before speaking, which is
yeah, notice it. Yeah, that's a very good point, and to say I deal with it a lot. So there are many funny cases. Just because blockchain is still trendy, and some of the aspects of blockchains, like smart contracts, are very hyped. I've seen that in 2016, 12 years, is that people rely, they can say, oh, we'll do this with a smart contract, or we'll put X amount of logic into a smart contract, or we'll have a centralized smart contract, which doesn't do anything. And so the misconceptions around smart contract can do a lot. For example, outbound calls and the way you need to feed data, the type of logic you want to code. So there are certain rules. I probably they're now written, but it used to be unwritten rules. How do you manage? You try to keep them lean. easy to upgrade. You don't store a lot of data on chain for that sense. And exactly what you were saying, because it's a slow database, it's not practical. So in my day-to-day work, I'm trying to create that mindset and explain how do you assess what kind of data to store, when do you need a smart contract, um, when do you need digital assets as well. That's something else. A lot of misconceptions I'm looking at now and trying to create business flows using smart contracts without using digital assets. So from perspective of using, for example, fiat payments, like the US dollar transactions, regular bank transactions, and without creating a strong framework around stable coins or digital assets. I see that as a big drawback that enterprises are, because they're afraid of changing their process a lot. Okay, we want to be innovators, so we want to use smart contracts. So we change something small, but that small change brings a lot of a new environment, a new vector into your infrastructure just for using smart contracts. And without digital assets, it's not, it doesn't make sense, because it's just so many hurdles around it. So yeah, that's some of the most obvious.
Thank you for that answer. Like, I would love to hear the funnier stories too. But with the latter, you said that implementing such a novel technology like the blockchain for enterprises, like, brings much more to implement, like dealing with the digital assets, which is still, we're not there yet. Would CBDCs help, in your opinion, for like big companies to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because CBDCs are, they would start the conversation. I'm not saying that they will be using, I'm not saying that they will be using blockchain. You can create digital assets, just like we have digital payments now. You can create digital assets without using a blockchain, and that's probably where those CBDCs will end up using some sort of DLT type of technology, not a blockchain as we know them. But there will be a conversation starter, and there will be the right, just because the whole infrastructure, all the companies need to mature technically and in terms of like understanding of what's possible. So those CBDCs and that government central banks push is actually creating frameworks, it's helping starting having those conversations more openly around DOT specifically. And then whatever we create to facilitate CBDCs, it will be easier to port to use, for example, for stable coins, to use for other digital assets. And eventually we will come to cryptocurrencies, but it's a process of which one is easier for us, which one is for us in terms of like us enterprises, which one is easier to start with, where is the need for us now. Cryptocurrency is amazing, and there is a need, it's just the market might be a bit too small as it is now to make huge technical changes and to change like roadmaps just for cryptocurrencies, it might be too small. So CBDCs, it's amazing opportunity.
Interesting. All right, thank you for this. And now I would like to push the discussion a little bit in the direction of more public blockchains. And since I don't want to, prolong this, like too long, make it too long, let's devote like 10, 15 minutes on this topic. Actually, it's very interesting for me. So I would like to ask you, because we have some, we have a lot of fans of Bitcoin in the group, and Bitcoin is great, and I really love it. I've loved it since 2013. I still love it. I'll continue to love it in the future. But there's almost nothing exciting happening there, in my opinion. Uh, and like, what do you think? Like, what do you think about Bitcoin? Do you think it has some? What is its biggest challenges now? What can make it more exciting? Um, like, is there something that you're looking forward to in Bitcoin?
I think what you were saying is very similar to where my sentiment is. I started with Bitcoin. I'm keeping an eye on other platforms as well. But for from if you're looking for that asset that can hopefully, I'm not saying it is, it's storing the value. That is, you always have access. You have your own private keys. You don't really rely on wallets. You have your own storage. That is boring, and I'm not saying boring is bad. I'm saying boring is good. Because imagine if you have a large amount in a cryptocurrency and there is a governance discussion or use or I'm not saying names now, but there's changes in the next 1 year. You won't be able to sleep. The boring part of Bitcoin is actually it's good. Uh, so I'm a fan. Bitcoin is good. I think that's the most anticipated from enterprises asset in terms of like if we want to integrate something. What we're looking at, we're not looking at smaller ERC tokens or smaller other networks. We're looking at Bitcoin only for now. 90% are looking at Bitcoin in terms of like investment and building tools around Bitcoin. For that reason, it's boring, it's stable, it's governed as it won't change in the next few years. I remember back in the day when the guys were community was discussing around like shall we integrate privacy in Bitcoin and stuff like that, and they end up not doing it, and turns out it can be for good. And apparently now there are some BIPs improvements that are probably will happen in the next 1 or 2 years, and that's how I see. I think boring is good for Bitcoin.
Perfect. And do you think just like specific questions? Do you think that the block should be increased, or do you think when it comes to scalability, layer two solutions like the Lightning Network are more appropriate? Like, which one of those two do you prefer?
Yeah, the way I mean, I think it's already we've seen that we don't need huge blocks. And I'm not an expert in Bitcoin scaling for no means. But what happened is, and now I wasn't sure myself back when it was happening with the New York Agreement and everything and the whole 9 yards. It's just that now I see that we don't really need it. Bitcoin is working, there's swiping happening, and there's other implementation that would facilitate scaling on top of Bitcoin. That should be the way forward. You don't touch the actual asset. You go on the second layer networks. That I know it's easier said than done. It will take a lot of time and tests and to make sure that we don't really compromise security. We don't compromise some other aspects. But yeah, that's I would go into that route. But my personal opinion, I'll keep the Bitcoin base layer as it is. I won't touch it because imagine if they make a change and all the problems that are even the few institutions that are offsetting some payments for Bitcoin just to leverage their portfolio, they will just disappear. They'll sell everything immediately. They'll sell.
That's a very interesting viewpoint that actually changes to the protocol would have some major implications for all of the economic ecosystem around it. And yeah, that's a very interesting way to look at this. I haven't thought about this when it comes to scaling. I have some other considerations, but yeah, this is very interesting. And I totally agree about Bitcoin being boring. It should be boring. If it's working, don't touch it. Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Matter of like thinking. But what we're seeing now is that from like Lightning Network is kind of slow, as you said, like in terms of being a solution or second layer solution is kind of being slow. And what we're seeing now is that Bitcoin is actually going not in the direction of the Lightning Network that much, but it's being tokenized on Ethereum. And now more and more companies are trying to have Bitcoin on Ethereum. And I think the volumes are rising rapidly, and they have exceeded the volumes in the Lightning Network. So what do you think about this process? Does it make sense for Bitcoin to go on Ethereum, to be used as collateral, to be used in DeFi, or do you think that this is kind of risky and shouldn't be done?
Yeah, as long as we don't touch base layer, the protocol zero type of infrastructure, we can experiment. Developers can experiment, see what we joke, throw it at the wall. If it sticks, it's good. It works. And I think that's what they're doing now with the wrap Bitcoin thing. And as you said, I don't have the time to look at the numbers, but I think I saw some charts that it's going exponentially. The usability on top of Ethereum, it's amazing. I don't see an issue with that. Definitely, but those are technicalities. I will take a step back before I do something. The technicalities, you will figure it out. You know, there are smart people working on the protocol, they will figure it out. I'll be thinking, what is the use case? Why do I need that? And what are the implications? And just so I have faster Bitcoin transactions, yes, but and the good example is on the Bitcoin network that we saw moving to different protocols is Tether, for example. Tether used to be on the Omni protocol, then they moved to Ethereum just because it's faster. Now I think they're having a new protocol is out, so they're going to leverage all of these. And I think that would end up working with transactions as well. You end up supporting different protocols underneath you with a strong interoperability between them. Like so you'll be more liquid. You'll be able to go between Bitcoin to Ethereum and Ethereum to Bitcoin with those type of tools. If there is a need. I don't see that currently as a strong need, but it's amazing effort that the people developers are working for it. We need that those like keyword apps that would leverage that. And those keyword apps, they can be like payment, transactions, identity on scale on a public network.
Okay. So yeah, since we're talking about Ethereum, I would like to hear your opinion about this network. Yeah, maybe a few words about Solidity because you're a developer, and I've heard from hardcore developers, at least in the past years. Maybe it evolved since then, but I've heard that really Solidity was something that a serious developer would never touch because it's filled with holes. I guess, yeah, the logic there is unpredictable. But do you think this is the case? Because we see a lot of applications being developed in that language, applications that are really, yeah, managing lots of funds, huge amounts of funds. So as a developer, do you see a problem with Solidity, or you think it's evolved to a place where it's considered to be considered more or less safe?
Yeah, that's a good perspective now on Solidity. I'm always trying to be positive about developers and what people are creating, because if you look for holes, you can poke holes into anything. And I know very serious developers that are working with Solidity just because they want to work on top of Ethereum protocol. It can be permission or it can be public. So generalization usually doesn't work well. On the positive, I think it is working. It's doing the job. It's not great. It's not. We can't compare it to like C# or Java that exists for years and strong companies invested I don't know, hundreds of millions, probably billions into those tools, creating development environments and providing support and upgrading the language for the decentralized infrastructure that is behind Ethereum and Ethereum Foundation that is probably the group of developers for supporting Solidity. I think that is a positive effort that so many smart contracts are utilizing it, and it's working in transacting with real money. You can see the daily volumes of exchanges, and those exchanges, for them to facilitate those volumes, they must have either multi-sig wallets or other Solidity smart contracts at the backend. So it works. They're transacting. Can you make SAP type of or Oracle type of product on top of Solidity? Probably no, but that's not fit for purpose. The purpose is to make transactions from to. Of course, there is some complex more transactions, but I had this conversation recently with management of a company. I was explaining that Solidity, it's good for the purpose that you have to use it. There's risks, you have to be on top of it with upgrades, because sometimes the upgrades of Solidity are not backward compatible if you're interfacing depending on the clients that you're using. So you have to maintain a specific version of your Solidity smart contract, and your client has to be a specific version. You have to, if you don't want to upgrade, you have issues upgrading for a specific reason, you have to maintain those old versions. So yeah, I mean, it's great. And I know, and that's one of the, I think Ethereum is great, but you know what I think about generative Ethereum? I love it. I don't have an issue with anything. I would wish that they're more focused on one thing and do one thing good. Because I remember they used to do Viper. Remember that language? I think they still have some smart contract written in Viper. And they had some other languages that are coming from core Ethereum developers. I think Vitalik was working on Viper specifically. And just do one thing. Just do one thing. Stay there. Do it, but do it proficiently in CD. Remember how many Ethereum 2.0 clients there? I think they're still maintaining like 3 or 4 clients separate. And the mentality is like, let's see which one works at the end. I'm not sure if that's the right approach, but that's my personal opinion. Again, I would probably invest more time into 2, not 4 or 5.
Yes, I have seen this comment actually. Ivo Georgiev from ADEX, who is very much involved in the Ethereum space, mentioned this, that there are too many Ethereum 2 clients. But I think the idea there is related again to the decentralization idea, that there should be a different client so that the system is more resilient. If one client does something bad, then the other ones are available to use. But of course, I see your point. And two maybe final questions that I would like to ask you. I want to take more of your time. So the first one is, maybe you've heard of DeFi and this DeFi movement that is currently really growing. So what do you think about this? Because it's kind of resembles, it's trying to resemble services or a parallel banking system with all the lending and borrowing and derivatives. So what do you think about DeFi? If you have, if you have it or heard about it a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever met a Bulgarian guy without opinion about something. I think we're famous to have always opinions. So I do have an opinion. I was keeping an eye on DeFi. Where do I start? I mean, I have on the positive side, it's amazing. It's amazing. Trying to replicate existing business flows without that centralized governance on paper sounds amazing. In reality, I'm not really sure if it works. And why I'm saying that? There are several layers on DeFi that needs to be in place if you want to have a true DeFi. Because I'm not sure if we have a true DeFi now. Maybe I'm not sure. Even Maker has their own issues and their own governance that it is what it is. But having from that perspective, having a centralized companies being dependent on you being dependent on a centralized companies for a DeFi product, something like your case with BlockFi. I don't know if they're considered DeFi, but that's a little bit counter decentralization ethos. Other than that, we see a lot of and you can't go around it. The staking and the yields that you'll be earning are actually denominated in, or not specifically denominated always, but tightly coupled with the underlying asset. That's a big risk from my perspective. And we were looking at that at the end of last year when all the crypto was being wiped out, so having a huge downturn. So the whole collateralization of loans that you have to maintain, and when the prices of Ether was going down or goes up, you are exposed on those fluctuations. So for unskilled trader or unskilled user, you can't win. You'll always be in the negative. You'll always be on the red side, unless you're super rich or you just top up a lot. But that's not really the use case. It's purely gambling. What I'm saying, the issue is that you're based on the highly volatile underlying asset. That's one of the issues that I see. DeFi is great as a perspective, and I'm excited about the new products that are being launched, like Compound and stable coins being launched, and looking at the market caps. It is really exciting, and maybe that will be the killer app for crypto stable coins or digital assets that are pegged to a dollar. Maybe that's pegged to fiat currency. Maybe that's the killer app. That and something else that was happening, and I'm sure it's still happening. I don't know with the negative interest rates on fiat currencies, how those DeFi providers are able to give 10% or 9%. The way the system should work, and you guys can probably know more, is that those deposits are being actually converted to stable coins or to fiat and being held into a bank that actually can give you the interest, and that's how you can give it back to crypto users. What I was hearing a lot, without mentioning the name, on the San Francisco and New York DeFi scene, is that they can promise the yields just because they have some VC money they can give, and they can promise to get user excited. But that's not a sustainable model, because those VC money would run out in a year, and you have to make money, and the way you make money with deposit is to store it at the bank. But with a negative or close to zero interest from a central bank, you can't promise. So if you promise, if that's not the business case, then for you to promise that, it should be a zero-sum game, meaning that for you to get 10%, somebody would lose. Crypto user on the market should lose. And that's also not a sustainable model in time. It might work for some time, but people are smart and they'll figure it out.
Yes, I completely agree. First, I think that DeFi is just like an end goal. It's not really decentralized at this point. And second, about the yields, I have also had some discussions in the group regarding this, and there were a couple of interesting points mentioned in this respect. And you are right. What most of the companies are saying is that they're giving you 8% because they're taking 12% from someone else. And actually, what is interesting is I think that DeFi, or these lending and borrowing services in particular, what they're doing is they're tapping into this resource of speculators in the space. And we have a lot of them, and they're willing to borrow money for very large, paying very large interest rates on those borrowed money in order in order to be able to speculate and to be leveraged and possibly be more exposed to certain movements. So it's pure speculation, of course. But since we have this in the space with so many people are speculating, I mean, if they're willing to pay like these high interest rates, then I guess as a passive, like a lender to them, I can get my 8% and sleep well at night, and not think about their risk or the risk they're taking, because this is something that they need to be like considerate of by themselves. Okay, so I think this is it. It was a bit longer than I wanted it to be. Anastasia wants to say a couple of words, but before that, I'd like to really thank you about your unique perspectives on the like enterprise side of blockchain and your ideas about the public blockchain space. Thank you for your time. I know it's super valuable. Really thank you for this. And I hope we keep in touch in Twitter and around. And Anastasia?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to say that we already need to wrap it up. It was super interesting. I have like a lot of questions more, but we can do it like we can do even another session. And just to wrap up what the last thing we were talking about, I'm trying not to bring in add Nexo and so on, and other lending providers. Just do your research, people. It doesn't need to be risky. So yeah, there are different players in the lending space. So thank you very much, Biser. It was super insightful and interesting. I can pick your brains like a few more hours still, but we're very much out of time.
Thank you guys for having me. That's been such a fun. Thank you guys, and yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it was when I met you a year ago. I wasn't a co-organizer of the Sofia Crypto Meetup then, but I already then thought, yeah, you would make a great guest of our meetups. And like one of the good things, we're online now. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you guys. Thank you guys, and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Так,